Joined now by John Shannon, the former executive producer, Hockey Night in Canada, the co-host of the Bob McCown podcast, who, on top of being a British Columbian and following the Vancouver Canucks closely, does a lot of work on the Oilers broadcast.
True, yes.
Perfect guest here, Mr. Shannon. How are you?
Yeah, that just means I'm going to tick off both fan bases.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, you certainly can't please them both, right? We know
you're
that.
going to. It's like the old days. We used to do those Calgary Edmonton series. You'd walk down the street, down Jasper Avenue at Edmonton, and people would say, "You love the Flames," and then you'd walk down 4th Avenue in Calgary, "You Oiler lovers."
Yeah.
You thought you were doing your job properly when everybody was ticked off at you.
So speaking of, how much do Cuthbert and Simpson love the Oilers, John?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, both of them were in Edmonton for a while. One of them played for them. One was living there. It'll be terrible, won't it? It'll just be, it is. I am just waiting for that moment on social media when somebody says they like the Oilers too much.
Mm-hmm.
You got the two best broadcasters in the country doing the series, so life is good.
Yeah, it is the A team. Maybe just to explain, John, how typically Hockey Night in Canada and now Rogers, but previously the CBC go about these assignments.
Well, I certainly can't speak for what happens now, but you would primarily say what is our lead series, and then you'd put. In my time there, you'd put probably Bob Cole in the play-by-play seat. We had Don Whitman, who was predominantly in the West, which made it easier. We had Kenny Daniels that was assigned to Montreal. What we tried to do in our period of time there, guys, was make it so that you didn't say, "Whoa, the Vancouver guy's doing the Edmonton games." And so we tried to create an aura of network broadcasters. And by doing that, it made it a little easier. Mind you, that was before social media. And people had a voice to suggest that everything is wrong with the broadcasters on every broadcast period for the rest of time.
Are the executives happy with an all-Canadian matchup, or would they rather this series was split up in a Canadian and it was a Canadian and different series so that you could cover two different Canadian series?
Well, I think they would have liked the Maple Leafs to win Saturday, would have solved the problem. You would have had the best of both worlds, because what you were guaranteed and what you are guaranteed with an Edmonton-Vancouver series is a conference final with a Canadian team. So you have a Canadian team in the Final Four, which is really, really cool. There was, again, not to talk about the old days, but we used to have conniptions when we didn't have a team get to the third round. I remember in 1996, the Maple Leafs got knocked out in the second round by St. Louis, and we were apoplectic because there wasn't a team in the conference final. For a long time in the 80s and 90s, that was a given, guys.
Mm-hmm.
That happened regularly, and since the mid-90s, it has been a huge challenge to get more than one Canadian team through to the conference finals. And, when the Leafs and the Canucks played in 94 in the conference final, that was quite something. That was important, and that got the Canucks through to the Western Conference final that they won. So you're guaranteed one Canadian series. By the third round of the playoffs, there will be interest across the country in a Canadian team more so than a non-Canadian team. And you can only hope that one Canadian team gets to the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah. And so everyone's aware, Cuthbert and Simpson would have been on the last Canadian team standing here. Now, I suppose had it been the Leafs, they would have stuck with the Leaf series, and it would have been.
I would suspect so.
Yeah. Would it have been Singh and DeBrusk here? You figure?
I don't know. I don't know. They were very tight-lipped about everything. I think that there was, first of all, John Shorthouse did a really good job in the Nashville series. But you would have a difficult time allowing Shorthouse to do a Vancouver-Edmonton series and have Jack Michaels sit on the sidelines, for the games in Edmonton.
Shorty DeBrusk would have been.
I was just going to say, would Shorty DeBrusk, I realize they probably haven't worked together much, if at all, before. And so perhaps you as the executive producer have chemistry concerns there, John? You can tell us about
No.
that. But that
I wouldn't have
solve-
chemistry concerns with either of those guys. They're
Okay.
professionals.
Yeah.
They're professional. But I
right.
don't think you can. I don't think you can put John Shorthouse in home games in Edmonton. I don't think you can do that. You know,
But they would have been fine with DeBrusque in games here in
but
Vancouver.
Louis done Vancouver games all season long on Saturday nights.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Louis is. I know he does the regional Edmonton package, but Louis is Hockey Night in Canada's doubleheader #1 analyst.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what probably would have been smart, and we used to do this all the time. Why not have go to a 3-man system and put Jack Michaels doing play-by-play in Edmonton, John Shorthouse doing play-by-play in Vancouver, and Dave Tomlinson and Louis DeBrusque doing all the games together, and have one guy between the benches and one guy in the booth.
Makes way too much sense, John.
On top of that, you would have saved some of the travel money you're spending.
Yeah.
Let me ask it this way then, John. Province of British Columbia is more than 5 million people.
Mm-hmm.
It's damn near the GTA, albeit without the extended history of the Leafs and Two Solitudes and, you know, their pan-Canadian, pan-international fan base. Why does a market of 5 million get more respect from these broadcasters and the decisions? Like, we're far in a way bigger than Edmonton. Like, you know, Edmonton is you know,
the numbers don't prove that. You know, the numbers don't prove that.
They don't?
The Edmonton Oilers have a larger national presence, ratings-wise, than the Vancouver Canucks.
Really?
Trophies will do that. Stanley Cups.
Trophies and superstars will do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Two of the greatest players that have ever lived have worn that jersey. That's going to have an effect. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is, Matt, it is the great equalizer when it comes to that. You know, you're right. British Columbia is the second largest English-speaking market in our country.
By far. By far.
No question. But there is a more national appeal for the Edmonton Oilers east of the Rocky Mountains. And by the way, there's an appeal for the Oilers. There's a lot of Albertans living in British Columbia too.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I know a lot of Oiler fans. A lot of them.
A lot of Oiler fans. Yes. I remember when we were doing distribution and we had an Oilers series and a Canucks series. An Oilers series and a Maple Leaf series. And we put the Maple Leafs into British Columbia, and the Lower Mainland was happy, and the interior was all over us for what we did. There are so many Albertans living particularly in the Okanagan and the Thompson. Mm-hmm. So by the way, you can never win. You can never win these things.
No. The tribalism in this series is going to be serious here, John. Like, this is...
It already is.
Like, yeah, it already is. They have not played a single game. Like, if this happens to be a 6 or 7 game series, like, it will be it'll be gross by the end of it. Like, I'm a little bit worried as to where this goes, because these teams have, like, they basically have never faced each other. It's been 30 years, for heaven's sakes. Mm-hmm. Which seems crazy given they're always in the same division. But this is a novel experience. It involves a bit of a David versus Goliath, because two of the best players in the world are both on the Edmonton Oilers. I mean, it's going to be really interesting.
Yeah. Well, except that when you look at the quality of players on the Canucks, you know, there are, Edmonton doesn't have a defenseman as good as Quinn Hughes.
No.
I would argue on the forward situation, it's a lot closer than people realize if Pettersson's playing well. There are a lot of similarities when you think about the depth of forwards, the style of play of the forwards. This could be a fun series to watch. And by the way, I think we said that last October, and it was 8-1 at Vancouver. So you never know.
Which brings us to the poll question: who's the underdog in this series, John?
Oh, I think it's Vancouver. Mm-hmm. From 2,500 miles away, I think it's Vancouver. And I do think it's Vancouver for the Pettersson factor. And I think it's a Vancouver because I think there's not enough appreciation for what Artur Shilovs did in that playoff series against Nashville. So the Oilers are right now running on all cylinders, and so much of the success of the Oilers isn't with Connor McDavid, because we know McDavid's going to deliver all the time, but you're getting playoff Leon, and playoff Leon is a beast. He is a beast, which is putting, I think, more pressure than ever on Pettersson to do a comparable style of being a beast for the Canucks. You know, Leon goes up and down in the regular season. He's like a roller coaster. In the playoffs, he has always appeared to be magnificent, and he has been no different this round of playoffs against Los Angeles. So, to me, it's, and we always like to simplify and have storylines, right? To me, this is Pettersson versus Draisaitl.
Yeah.
And if Pettersson doesn't match Draisaitl, it's going to be a long series for Vancouver.
Well, I've been saying that's the wild card here, is that if the Oilers, or sorry, if the Canucks offense can get going and it can resemble at all what they were in the first half, then I think this series gets evaluated very, very differently.
Correct.
What has the defensive structure, and we know it's improved under Chris Knobloch. They're not as structured as the Canucks have been this year. Is that fair to say? Like the Canucks have been keeping teams below 25 shots with regularity. Can the Oilers boast that kind of defensive structure now, do you think?
Well, against Los Angeles in the last couple of games, they certainly did.
Mm-hmm.
But they had their moments. You know, this is a team in Edmonton that does not manage prosperity well. They get on a roll. They go on a heater for 16 games. And then there's a malaise that sets in. They start to believe their own stuff too much. You know, I think people within the organization are hoping that this is a different situation because it is the Stanley Cup playoffs. But defensively, you know, Matthias Ekholm has made a huge difference. But there are still some question marks on a regular basis defensively about Evan Bouchard. Can he be managed differently by the Canuck forwards, perhaps? Darnell Nurse, when he plays a simple game, is a very good defenseman. But Darnell doesn't always want to play or think he needs to play a simple game. He tries to get a little too aggressive, tries to go up ice a bit too much. What Chris Knobloch has done, and Paul Coffey too, they have tried to simplify the game defensively for their group, and it seems to have paid off. And it certainly did pay off in the series against the Los Angeles Kings.
Just looking at Draisaitl, extraordinary.
Yeah. Oh no. He's the linchpin, and that's in addition to what Connor McDavid can deliver.
Mm-hmm. No, I know. I mean, like, if this was your number one lead dog in a playoff series, you'd feel good about him. That he's number two. Like, it's 54 career postseason games, 87 points, 36 goals. He is nearly an assist per game in the Stanley Cup playoffs over his career. And then he's more than 2/3 of a goal per game
right.
in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So
he's a beast, man. He's a beast. Yeah. You know, and you watch what as the series goes on, you know, they will definitely try to keep them apart. You know, the value of having McDavid on one line and Draisaitl on the other puts 46 minutes of ice time with one of those two stars on the ice.
Exactly. Yeah.
But at the end of periods, out of commercial breaks, out of penalty kill situations, Chris Knobloch is not afraid to put them out there for a shift together.
Yeah.
And that is another lethal weapon for the two of them. And the other guy that's really made a difference in Edmonton is Evander Kane. You know, Evander Kane is, you know, he's almost got that playoff mode too. And he certainly in the 5 games in this series has against Los Angeles was very, very good.
As long as Mark Spector's forking him a little bit, he gets to go on, right?
Mm-hmm. Players do not listen to the media.
Oh, come on. He made direct reference to it.
Hey. Spector may be the Canucks MVP before this series is all said.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah.
What did you make of the Canucks closing out Nashville in Game 6?
Gosh, that's a few days ago. That's a long time.
I know.
I mean, it's hard to.
We'll get into that in a second too.
It's hard to remember that far back. Well, you know, I think I told, I had no doubt that the Canucks were going to win the series. I mean, Jimmy Rutherford could have played goal. I think they were going to win. Just because I like some of the leadership of the Bessers of the world, the Millers of the world. I think Quinn Hughes learned how to play the game a little differently after Andrew Burnett's team targeted him so much. But the faster he moved the puck, the more effective he was. And then some good depth guys made a difference too. I mean, Garland, Joshua have done what they've done for most of the season now. And that's why this is going to be a very difficult series to pick. The Canucks did what they had to do to win the series, and hopefully they got some rest before this next one starts in order for them to be as healthy as possible.
Well, that's right. We brought up the TV, and TV is part of the reason why they get this extra rest. And we were saying how important it was for them to win in 5 games because of the rest.
Yeah.
It turns out they were able to win it in 6 games and still get some rest, which was pretty big because it sounds like there's a few of the key players that have got already, after just one round, a fair amount of bumps and bruises. Yeah. So this has been pretty valuable. Huh?
Everybody's banged up by now already. There's no question about it. By the way, at a certain point late last week, there was discussion that this series is supposed to start Sunday, then Tuesday, and finally Wednesday. Yeah. And both teams were told on Saturday, you're going Tuesday.
Yeah.
And hence the thought that it was going to be a Tuesday start. And then finally, we ended up, because of the concert in Dallas on Wednesday, that they have to deliver a game Tuesday night for both networks in both countries, and then a game on Wednesday night too. So that's why it ended up flip-flopping. I'm sure listen, the Dallas Stars are probably not happy about it, but the Dallas Stars put themselves in that position.
You go 7 games, you don't get that benefit anymore. No.
Right. 2 more questions here. Number one, who do you like in how many games?
It's a pick 'em for me. This is a 7-game series. Blake's talking about what it's going to be for a fortnight. It is going to be a crazy 2 weeks. It is going to be a crazy 2 weeks. And I honestly, I can justify both teams winning. Do I think the Oilers are favored? Yes, I do. But I could justify the Canucks winning this series and would not be surprised if they did.
You think Thatcher Demko makes an appearance in this series?
I don't know. No. I mean, I don't know. The great thing about having Shilovs play as well as he does is the other 2 guys can get rest and they can take their time with him. And it's not when he loses 1 game, but if he loses a second game of the series, then you have to be concerned.
Senator Shannon stumping for Governor General here. You may.
Well, listen,
diplomacy. Oh, it's okay, Your Excellency. I understand.
Listen.
In both markets.
I drove across the Rockies enough, and I know where the Continental Divide is, and I know where the water goes one way and the water goes the other way, and I want to go both places. How's that?
Well, and Blake's talking about the tribalism in the series. We have our own personal red deer in this series, right? Like,
sure,
you get up to PG and east of PG, you start to find a lot of
you
start to find a lot of you find a lot. Start to find.
I tell you what, as you know, I do enough games in Edmonton. There's a lot of people coming from Dawson Creek.
Yeah,
I'm not surprised. And people crossing across the Yellowhead to make a track to Rogers Place. So that's the other thing. We have to make sure we get differentiate between Rogers Place and Rogers Arena. We can just say Rogers and keep everybody happy.
Or we don't say that at all.
Yeah, utterly annoying.
Well, you know what? Finally, somebody in the head office is going to say our investment paid off because we're going to have good numbers and a good series.
I saw the graphic the Canucks released. The home games were sponsored by, game 1 sponsored by TD Bank or whatever. Yeah. Game 7 is brought to you by Rogers at Rogers Arena. Like, you've already got the 1 billing. Do you need the double billing?
By the way, the what was Tockett's line about Payne?
It was Brunette. Yeah.
No. It was Tocchet.
Yes, yeah, you're right.
Like the t-shirts are coming. Yeah, the t-shirts are coming for this series.
Yeah,
and I hear they're also going to be t-shirts of Arthur's She Loves shirt.
Yes.
Embrace the pain.
The she shirts.
Embrace the pain.
Yeah.
The she shirts have to make an appearance.
Yeah,
no
the
doubt.
she shirts are coming, and Embrace the Pain t-shirts are coming.
Lastly, we saw the photo. Tell us about Bob Cole's memorial on the Rock Friday.
Well, it was magnificent. There was about I think 8 or 9 of us that made the trek from elsewhere, from the hockey community to pay our respects. The family was remarkable. The service was fantastic. There were 5 speakers, and McLean was number 5.
Mm-hmm.
And he was number 5 in what the speech was all about too. The kids, all 4 of Bob's children spoke, and they were magnificent. And Bob Cole would have been the proudest father of all time. But it was tears. It was a ton of laughter. And it's one of those times where you're going to look back and say, man, I'm glad I went. I'm glad I went, because it was, the 3 girls and Robbie. By the way, Robbie Cole lives in Penticton. How's that?
Yeah. Oh,
Runs a big plumbing company in Penticton now.
does he really?
Hopefully,
Yeah.
Sekeres and Price listener then.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
We'll have to reach out
and
when we're
and by the way, and plays at Fairview Mountain.
how about that?
So there is something.
We have
there
many
is-
a listener and friend who's up at Fairview.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there is something to be said that, my friendship with Cole was long and deep from 1977, and his son now lives 25 miles from where I grew up and plays the same golf course where I learned to play the game. And we had a good chuckle about that too.
Great. Marvelous stuff, John. Thank you for this. We'll catch up next week.
And I am not running for office, but I just want everybody to have a good time.
But, if the Prime Minister wants to reach out, come next Governor General.
You make a good one.
He
I can
takes the
see
call.
it.
He takes the call.
Yeah.
Listen, trust me, being Governor General is a lot more fun than being the Prime Minister. Trust me.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
You have to learn how to say Rideau properly, correct?
Wow, plus you get the big grounds there at Rideau Hall as opposed to that dump at 24/7.
If Clarkson can do it, you can do it. Come on.
Exactly. Yeah. There's already a CBC connection to that office, Shannon.
You mean Madam Adrian Clarkson?
Madam
That's
Clarkson.
It, yes.
And John, I went.
According to Blake, it's just Clarkson.
Hey, it's like hockey. I'm just calling play-by-play.
Check this out. I went to the Missioner Awards at Rideau Hall when she was Governor General. These are big journalism awards. And so we were prepped on the way over. It's Your Excellency. We get to it, and her protocol officer says, no, she's not about that. Call her Madame Clarkson.
Okay. Madame, that's right.
Madame
we used to line up at the cafeteria at CBC together every day, and she wore pink slippers. So
there you go. Nothing separating the two.
Nope. No.
So a pair of pink slippers, Sean, and you're on your way to being Governor General.
Thanks, John.
Let me make a note of that.
Hey, everybody, if you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.